After delaying Dying Light 2 seemingly out of the blue and then months of silence followed by all kinds of accusations and crazy rumors about a horrible work environment, and then ultimately a little bit of damage control, it looked like Techland was never going to be capable of releasing Dying Light 2. I honestly thought Dying Light 2 was just going to be assigned to the same fate as Dead Island 2, where we were just going to constantly get a bunch of promises that it was in fact coming, and yet here we are, over 5 years later and still no Dead Island 2. But luckily for us, yesterday, Dying Light 2 got a brand new extended trailer, an official release date that hopefully they'll stick to this time, and for some reason, an updated name. And as tempting as it is to milk views and completely do a 2-hour trailer breakdown of everything you can see with your own 2 eyes, I wanted to talk a little bit about this game and the amount of information that we've been getting about it. Dying Light 2 sounds like it's going to be the biggest game we've seen in a long time, and I'm really hoping that it doesn't turn out to be as big of a disappointment as Cyberpunk 2077 was. Truthfully, after replaying the original Dying Light a few times and then looking at all the marketing that this game has been doing, they're really heavily trying to improve the narrative, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for the same thing that Dying Light 1 did, with a story that just serves its purpose and that's it, with just a little more combat of what we have now. That would be pointless. That would just be DLC and not a sequel. Doubling down on what everyone loves in your game that makes it unique and fun while taking big chances on the weaker aspects, in this case being the story, is the essence of what a good sequel is. I was just saying, asking for better combat, more options to kill and dismember, more animations, weapons, polish and movement for combat and traversal, both independently and intertwined with a better story that has actions that are impactful to your world and your world alone, is quite a jump from a story with a lot of cliches and just is there. The original was great for its gameplay, its novelty, and actually having a day and night cycle that has a significance to the gameplay. I was just afraid that they'd get a little bit of tunnel vision and focus so strongly on the narrative that gameplay becomes secondary. Hey Cynic, does 3,000 new animations and parkour mean anything to you? You shut the fuck, I'm gonna delete your comment. No, but seriously, when they showcased the extended trailer yesterday, they had a small portion where they showed off the combat, and I watched that portion a handful of times, recalling some of the AMA videos that Techland shared a few weeks ago, which I'll link all this stuff down in the description in case you guys want to take a look for yourself. And it was said that in Dying Light 2, there's not going to be any type of firearms, at least no modern firearms. It was said that you are going to be getting a shotgun that you crafted, and upon using it, it does degrade. In the original Dying Light, you do have blueprints to craft certain guns. In that game, melee weapons do degrade and ultimately do break, but firearms don't. In Dying Light 2, I'm assuming this makeshift shotgun is the same way. If you find all the parts, you can craft it, although it's going to work similar to the melee weapons. The more you use it, it's going to ultimately degrade and break. But that's not the point. The point here is what the lead game designer said in regards to the shotgun and its place in combat.
When you craft it, when you create it, you can start using it using your left hand. So you can have a shotgun in your left hand and a machete or a sword or a hammer in your second one.
Now that clip was actually shared over a month ago, and I believe at a very small point during the trailer that was shared yesterday, you can actually see this in action. The shotgun anyways, not so much the machete in one hand and shotgun in the other. Towards the very end, you see the player actually use what looks to be like a two-handed weapon, followed by later on pulling out his shotgun, which prior to him pulling out his shotgun, he had nothing in his hands. So I'm assuming, just based off of what you see here in the trailer and what the lead game designer said, well, it is 100% possible to be able to use a machete in your one hand and the makeshift shotgun in the other. It doesn't look like that's going to be the end of the fluidity there. In the other AMA video, it shared that the grapple was also completely redesigned. They went in and redid the physics. They describe it as, in the original Dying Light, when you use the grapple in that game, you feel more like Spider-Man, whereas in this game, you feel more like Tarzan. There's more weight to it. It's a little bit more realistic. And they do say that it does have more uses in combat, which is again something we see in the trailer, which looks a little similar to how it worked in the original, where you basically just pull enemies towards you. I'm really hoping there's a little bit more dynamics to it, where like in this scene, for example, with the position that the player's in, it'd be nice to be able to start running, catch some speed, swing your grapple around a light post or maybe a low-hanging sign or something, and be able to kind of swing kick into an enemy. Highly doubt that's going to be possible, but it'd be nice to see something along that. But seeing how the player can go from grabbing an enemy with the grapple to throwing a Molotov, to throwing a knife, to throwing a spear, back to its melee, back to vaulting, and then ultimately drop kicking, really seems like, so far from the footage anyways, that Techland really is delivering on one-upping its previous game. And if this really is how the combat is going to be, I'm actually excited. Naturally, there's always something that goes wrong though, so I'm still expecting something to be up, but if none of this stuff is sped up, it looks like it's going to be really solid. My only remaining question though is, well, I'll play the clip.
You have multiple ways to hone your skills toward the gameplay style that suits you best. It's up to you if you focus mostly on mobility and parkour, or aggressive, blunt force combat, or a crafty approach where the tools you've created get the job done. Every ability you learn can be a game changer and possibly a new favorite move.
The narrator says it's up to us to decide what playstyle fits us best. Agility and parkour, blunt force objects, or being crafty. If I'm not mistaken, we haven't seen any of the skill trees for this game. In the original, we have 3. Agility, which is movement based, although there are some aggressive skills in there, the most prominent of which being dropkick and ram. Then we have power, which is tied to your aggression, and then we have survivor, which is most prominent of which tied to your grapple, dealing with vendors, and then when you are scavenging for supplies, it determines whether if you're capable of getting more or double the amount of, let's say, flowers picked, or how good you are at repairing weapons. You also get camouflage in that, and some blueprints, like being capable of throwing elemental stars or learning how to craft elemental effects to your shields. Nothing massive or incredibly crazy. I felt like it did cover some of the basics. It did go a little bit more into the zany type of stuff with the elemental stars and shields. Both how the skill trees were somewhat intertwined in the original. I expect that to be the case in the sequel, but maybe we'll see a little bit more sub-facets where you can prioritize more blunt force objects versus sharp objects, or like the narrator said, being a little bit more crafty. So in that case, you specialize in traps, so your traps become deadlier. If that's really how skill trees work and you perfect a specific skill tree, then maybe you'll get extra blueprints. Like in the trailer, we see some unique brass knuckles. Maybe that's a blueprint that's specific to mastering blunt force objects, or maybe that's all challenge based. Getting a certain amount of kills with blunt force objects or killing certain enemies with those type of weapons will grant you those things, or maybe even more durable or more brutal versions of those. Obviously, I'm just spitballing now. We've actually heard way more information on the narrative than gameplay. Like I said earlier, they are going to be dropping more information in the months leading up to the release date of Dying Light 2, which is officially December 7th, 2021. So it's a comfortable 7 months away from now. So still a long time, but I'm assuming with it still being so far out, they're most likely going to be dead set on that release date. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the combat, how it looked, just a little bit of my personal concerns and worries that I have pertaining to Dying Light 2. I'm probably going to talk about the trailer a little bit more, some infected, and hype this game up more. But until next time, I'll see y'all later. Also, join the Discord.